Hello, my doctoral friends. One of the things that we did not have a chance to look at this week was that handout in your folder that has the final assignment. So I figure let me save some time and look at this with you, and then we can talk about it if you have any questions. But like I said in class, we're working on this piece by piece, right? So you'll have a chance to clarify things as we go along. If you look at that handout, you'll notice that we've already done a few things in preparation for interviewing the program director or coordinator. So I think we're right on track. So if you look at this handout, you're going to complete this in evaluation teams. We've already established those teams. You've already had some time to meet. Every one of you are going to be submitting that plan at the end into Blackboard, so make sure everybody's name's on and everybody has a copy at the end of the semester. It's not required to carry out the plan. So I know I emphasized it probably 22 times. Here's your 23rd time. You are planning the evaluation. You're not carrying it out because you would need a year, 2, 3 years, whatever that might look like to carry it out. You're only providing the plan to the director or coordinator after the semester. So program representatives will need to share the information. You're setting up those meetings this week. I asked that you invite me to the session, but actually you're just going to go ahead and record that session with permission, or just be really good note takers and make sure that you ask the program coordinator or director, like, hey, if we have additional questions, can we reach out? And absolutely. I can't imagine that Dr. Fuller or Dr. Don or myself will not be available to you. So you're going to set up that meeting, take really good notes. You're creating those questions right now, and you're going to have a good handle on what this is about. So as external members of the evaluation team, you want to listen, you want to question, you want to make sure that you're aware of your own biases, even the biases of the program coordinators, because you want to make sure that this is bias-free as possible. Being an external evaluator, you have the advantage, right? Because you're not so close to this program. When my team interviews me, they're going to notice like I'm very passionate about what I'm doing. So they're going to notice that I'm going to have some biases, and they're going to have to take that into consideration. Overall, there are several steps that need to be involved during this planning. You're going to familiarize yourself with the program. You did that on the website. You're going to do that with the program director. The second bullet, clarify program goals and objectives. Some of the websites might give you a little information, but you want to make sure that that is a question that you're asking your program directors. Make sure you understand the goals and the objectives of your evaluation, right? You're going to provide them with the tools that they can use to evaluate that. Develop the evaluation questions. Develop a conceptual model of the program and identify key evaluation points. So we're going to get to that idea of a logic model or conceptual model. We're not there yet, but we will talk about that. Articulate the approaches that will underlie the program evaluation based on the content of the text. This is the information that you will be presenting in those chapter presentations that you're going to be doing in weeks 4 and 5. So we want to make sure that everybody who is presenting that chapter information is doing a thorough job, because that's going to be really important information that we need for our program evaluation. See, this never went away. Develop an appropriate evaluation design based on the research methodology. So whether it's a case study, I don't think we'll be doing an ethnography. Descriptive, some sort of mixed methods, probably the most solid. Quasi-experimental, experimental, all of those great things you learned in Qual and Quan can now come together in this evaluation. Determine the data collection methods, including the instruments and how that data will be analyzed. So even though you won't be analyzing the data, you'll be telling the program director in this evaluation plan, this is how you will evaluate your data. Again, you're that external evaluator. You're more valuable, quite frankly, than an internal evaluator. determine how those reporting procedures will occur. I can share with you kind of the timeline that I use for reporting information, but also how that will be reported, right? How will that be shared with the stakeholders? And in some cases with the public, if that's required. You're going to set up a timeline, a budget, which is optional. You do not need to set up a budget, but some teams may want to do that. And how you'll manage those evaluation activities. Not only a time frame, not only how the information or how the data will be collected, whether it's Question Pro, whether they're interviews, but also who is in charge of those, right? Who are the people that are in charge of those activities? Now, here's an important piece of this, because I know we all like to know what's expected. While there's not one way to format or develop an assessment plan for this assignment, you can use the template that's provided at that PDF that I provided for you. You can add additional tables or alternative formats, but this, I think, is a really good place to start. And make sure you are following APA 7th edition. When 6 wasn't good enough, we came up with 7. So those pages, page 2 and beyond in this handout, really sets up for you what this evaluation plan needs to include. Now, you can set up the plan just according to how this looks in this document, or you can choose an alternative setup, but you want to make sure that you're including this information. So this number 1, I think, is important to think about this as you're interviewing the program director, because you may even want to collect some documents from that coordinator or director that might provide some meat to this section. So you want to provide some background information and a description of the program itself. So you're looking at between 2 and 5 pages. This is the section that you could weave some literature into. So think about that. So for the Peer Center, you are examining teacher training, you're examining the issue of dyslexia in young children, because that's who we work with, K-12. So there's some literature out there that you could weave in. If you're looking at the TREES network, you're looking at special ed populations, specifically, I think it's severe disabilities. I'm pretty sure, but she'll clarify that they do parent involvement. So there's a lot of different pieces of literature that you can include. And if you're looking at the CIT, you're looking at teacher training, professional development, technology. I'm sure once you talk to Dr. Fuller, those types of ideas in the literature will, kind of bubble to the top. So I want you to think about that as you're talking to them. We have to write this introduction. So, let's think about all the information that we can gather from them. You'll find the literature, but you're going to get that foundational piece about the program. The second one is describe the purpose, the need for, the design, the approach, and the logic model. So these are the types of things that we're going to be working on in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be working on our evaluation questions. We're going to be working on the design that you decide to use. And then we're going to take a look at logic models, which you are going to create your own logic model for the program. So since we have all teams of 3 or 4, forget about the pairs, because we don't have any pairs this semester, but we're looking at all the teams of 3 or 4. That tells you what your requirements are there. So, something to look forward to in the coming weeks, but I really want you to think about this as we move along. What are we doing to kind of reach those goals and requirements of the final, the final evaluation plan that's used? The third thing is your data collection. You're going to be summarizing that, talking about the stakeholders, each stakeholder, and what data you will be collecting for each of them. You'll be creating an instrument for all of those and the timeline that you use. For instance, there are pieces of data that I collect within my program evaluation that are collected every 6 months. collected every 3 months, collected once a year. That's something you want to think about. And for me, I'm kind of visual, right? So I can see that timeline of what is collected when. That's something you want to make sure you include. Make sure you're looking at but a number of instruments, and it correlates with how many people are on your team. Again, we give you the requirement here. Okay? So, we got 1, 2, and 3. That's a lot to think about in the next couple of weeks. What I think we can do is hold off on 4, 5, 6, 7. But if you go down to page 3 and beyond, there's a little bit more information about each of those. More information about the intro, right? And what you should describe. Even show you how maybe you could put it in a table. More information about the evaluation purpose. A lot, there's some repetition, but there's some additional information there. You can show you how there's a table there. Data collection, same thing. Give you a little bit more to consider here. So I think, between this week and next week, take some time to look over that, highlight what your team's going to need to consider. And I would suggest that you kind of nominate, for lack of a better term, a point person. And I don't mean that person does all the work and they have to organize everything, but is there someone in the group who's, uber organized that is going to kind of have that checklist of what we need to be doing and when we need to be doing it? There's going to be a lot of class time devoted to that group work, and we want to make sure that you're using it. You want to make sure it's a valuable time for you. All right, so with all of that, that gives us a little bit to think about going into week 2. I am going to get things ready for week 2. So, again, if you need anything, holler, and I will see you soon. Bye.